Okay, scientific conduct and ethics, as I just discussed, we're going to talk about conduct and ethical issues relating to science. So, of course, the fundamental understanding about all this would be related to how do we act or behave as a human. So, in other words, how to be kind or how to be nice enough to do the right things. Okay? So, question number one, what is ethics? Or, as I said, we like to define it as science, and so I think it's important that we would like to expand all these different biological options for living organisms. So in other words, we'll cover not just human beings, but also how we treat other animals and so on. And then we realize that we have different options because we talk about conduct, right? So it's more like your behavior. So what kind of options do we have? And I think that's very important. So before you do an experiment, or before you do a survey, or before you do a research, or before you do a study, you should be able to first understand that how many options you have, and then you decide what to do. For that, you have to predict what kind of consequences that, okay, I have option 1, 2, 3, 4. If I do a survey like this, you anticipate, right? I will be obtaining results like that. But that may not be enough. Then you think maybe, oh, I need option 1 and 2, and so on. So this is the concerns that we have for the conduct and ethical problems that we have to address. And of course, we have to go beyond that, in particular in environmental science. We do our research because they are all related to our environmental sustainability. You know, sustainable development is still the key word, that because we know that this world has limits. The resources should have some sort of limits. So how can we survive or develop at the same time without exploiting all the resources? Now that's an important question. So don't just say that, oh, this is environmental issues. It's not about biochemistry, it's not about, you know, other issues, but it is about all issues around us. You do health problem. Why there are health problem? Because you are intoxicated, right? That's why we see more patients with cancer. But these are all related to sustainability issues. Why do we have GMO, genetically modified foods? All these foods were developed. The old days, we believe that we do not have enough resources. We do not have enough food to feed the world. So we need to produce more GM foods, right? So is it ethical? Will the natural environment be affected by all this? In the last lecture or last topic by Michael, we will spend more time on that. And then what else? Ethics, and when you consider urban development, we have had many, how to say, terrible or real examples happening in Hong Kong. The third one-way, you know, the bridges over, I always say there's a bridges over troubled water. Zhong Gong Tong Do, over the Deep Bay area, oyster down there. Supposed to be an agricultural land, right? Same thing is true to Macau, Hong Kong, Zhuhai Bridge. Chinese white dolphin is living there. Urban development versus environmental preservation or conservation is always a huge debate, right? So we always say that, okay, we need to have some sort of justifications. Is it justified? And then we always have options, right? So this is what conduct is all about. Oh, there are several different options. We can do this and then move the animals away because it is so important. This one option. Then we will come to the fact that we need to consider environmental justice or even climate justice. We always believe that any climate issues for a developed nation, including Hong Kong, we could deal with it. Okay? No problem. We could even build artificial mangrove. All right? What suffers most? Who suffer most? Only those African countries? Only those people living without enough technology or resources. So we like to cover all these topics basically from just focusing on bioethics more to scientific conduct and ethics. So we define all these topics. So for my part of teaching, I have 6 topics. Today we talk about scientific conduct, and then we talk about misconduct and all the faults. Okay, and then we talk about who owns planet Earth. And I try very hard to find somewhere to put this also important concept known as patent or patent. So we'll probably spend some time on this after we discuss environmental management options or environmental ethics. Okay, and then we have climate ethics. I just mentioned justice and equality, and also how to do it. You know, conduct is the way that we need to do the Sustainable Development 17 goals. I still have not prepared this part of teaching. You know, we have had a very terrible summer, so I'm still working on this last lecture. I may change the topic. Not so sure, but perhaps we'll just stick with this Sustainable Development 17 goals. Many life science projects actually are required to do that. I'm not sure whether you realize that or not, that we have a group of food students. They would like to produce mushroom from waste. They actually won some wonderful prizes. One of the tricks that they did so well was that they present, okay, according to the Sustainable Development 17 goals, we have achieved 15 goals. They put it in the poster. Okay, a group of students from biology and food science. So I don't think that's just limited to environmental science students, so that's why I put this SD practice here. Right? And at the end, we'll talk about baby editing or gene editing. All right, so the topic that we are going to cover would be related to human being, right? So as I said before, perhaps thousands of years ago, Chinese wisdoms already mentioned about how to become a human, how to be nice or kind. And then in Hongji, Mangji, they talk about yang. So it's all about human, so then we talk about life, right? So this is all about not just human anymore, it's also about life. Now, you can see the Western countries or Western society would conduct this in a very different view. I'm not so sure. Have you all studied Introduction to Environmental Science? No? Next year, second term, okay. But then I would talk about more about the perceptions and how to deal with the environment or handle our planet Earth at different aspects or using different approaches. But here you would imagine life under the, how many of you are Christian here? Or Catholic? Catholic? Buddhism? Enjoy. Are you vegetarian? No? Okay, anyway. So respect life is more than just human. So we'll expand from us to include other animals, because Christianity, they mentioned that because God creates all creatures, right? Not just human. He made human on the 7th day. The other days, Monday to Saturday, other creatures were created. Okay? If you have such beliefs, you can see that in Western culture, respect life is more than just human, but also other animals and trees. Okay? To me, chopping up a tree is like killing a life. I still feel very sorry that after Sanjo, they chop up all the trees and then making all the limbs like that. I said, oh, don't worry, they will regrow again, so then we'll have to consider ethics. The boundary and limit I mentioned, not just human, right, but also other animals, and then a certain turn to other plants. So what kind of limits should we set? Is it all about the environment or about the environment around you? Or no, it's a global issue, so it's the environment around the globe. Right, so there's actually no limit or even no boundary. So if it's all about justice, so what is justice? Some people say, KM, you are so crazy. You want to discuss justice with your students? What is justice? So what we have heard over these 3 months, we usually complain there's only brutality from the police, right? Is it justice? And then the police say, we are just exercising the lawful act. Then you will see that justice is also about law, right? Okay. But after all is conduct. Conduct is like human behavior. The conduct translated into Chinese is like from those Sun Menfa almost 100 years ago. They move it from those Dou Da. But then we only focus on, or we shall only focus on scientific conduct. And then at the end, we'll talk about those topics for discussion. When we talk about life, and many people will refer to this book known as Principles of Biomedical Ethics. So that is the origin of even what we call bioethics. This is an old book. Shortly after Second World War, people start to concern with different human behaviors if they are mainly related to biomedical sciences, because at the time in vitro fertilizations were developed. Right? Then we start to think about, is it abortion? Is it acceptable? So they try to redefine the conditions. We need to define something, right? First, they define the respect for autonomy. No matter what is your religious background, if you like to do abortion, is it okay to do so, right? Autonomy, okay, then you do it. But then you will say, okay, the baby is already grown up to 3 months. So it's not just a baby, it's a human life. How dare you say that it's your own autonomy? Your autonomy is now disturbing someone else's life, right? Be that your offspring, you are the parents, but you have no right to control another life. So you make your own choice. You could make your own choice. Your own choice could not disturb someone else's choice. The baby inside your body or that woman's body, he or she got no choice. So we have to do something to protect it, right? So, the second word, I think it's from French, do good. From the word benefit. Okay? Beneficence. If we do something good for everyone, that would be what we refer to an ethical way to act. And number 3, even if you don't good, do no harm. Maleficence is harm, right? Law of maleficence. Do no harm, at least you don't do anything bad. And then finally, this word come back again from that book. They have discussed this all the way at the end, justice, fair to everyone. Everyone means everyone. Not everyone in the animal farm. You know what I'm referring to, right? The famous book, 1984, Animal Farm. There must be some animals more fair than the others. Okay, that means it's not fair. Fair means 100%, we are all created equal. Be that you are a politician, you are a government official, or you are under the poverty line, we all should be treated the same. Okay, so this is what life is all about. And then I also propose to you another discussion point. I mentioned abortion, that is the removal of a baby from a mother's womb. Then we may have to decide at what age of the baby. In Hong Kong, 3 months is the limit, and that abortion must be agreed and signed by 2 doctors. And that the mother must have received some sort of consultation or counseling. Would she like to accept such abortion? And then the question obviously comes back is 3 months good time? We may come back to that for this discussion. We also have another one. You know what is this, right? 安樂死. Oh, the Chinese name is really good. 安樂. Wow, 你死咗就好安樂. Euthanasia. But I don't know why they make this Chinese name as 安樂死. Another term when we yell to the AFCD officials, oh, this is called 人道毀滅. We kill the animals in a very humane way. Because their existence on earth would bring not just you to suffer, but also that particular animal also suffer, right? So why don't you finish his or her life, right? So first, on human, the first country is actually in Holland or Netherlands. They legalized this euthanasia, and actually they are more specific. They call it assisted suicide. Okay, you must have watched many YouTubes or on the Facebook or on the news that I found it so cruel. I mean, you inject into some sort of toxins, and you say, oh, this is not toxin, this is actually potassium. Just increase the amount of the plasma level of potassium. In other words, the calcium level or the other iron level would be muchly reduced, and then the heart could not pump anymore. When the patient's heart could not pump, then usually they die easily. And then suffering, unbearable pain. There are 3 definitions, right? Illness must be incurable. Of course, you may argue, how do you define incurable? Well, incurable is that the patient is going to die within half a year. Demand must be made in full consciousness by the patient. Now, meaning that if the patient is already unconscious, like that, you could not do anything. That's actually a huge debate in Hong Kong. You know, Hong Kong has the longest lifespan in the world. One of the problems is that when I talk to those doctors in PWH, they say, oh, we do not have enough resources. We most likely may like to do some policy or adjust some policy, making sure that patient that if he or she cannot survive and the disease is not curable, and then the life would be ended peacefully. But of course that must be signed beforehand by the relatives, right, the close relatives. But still, this is obviously a debatable issue. Now, animal testing. There's another thing called animal testing, right? Many students come to my lab, 10 to 15 years ago, okay, I like to do genetic engineering, but I just cannot touch mammals. Be that mice or rats. Oh, your lab, you have lovely fish. And then say, oh, fish are so lovely, why Why would you like to work on fish? Oh, now I find that perhaps the fish has no smell. Okay, fish is also an alternative model. And the old days we even used the term higher organisms and lower organisms. I still remember the old day when I was a student, my PhD thesis, I tell you, oh, we use fish as a model because it's a lower organism. And then my supervisor looked at me, how do you define lower and higher? Do you think humans are higher? Or all mammals are higher? They're all animals, right? If you think they're all equal, there's no such thing. Oh, higher because of the evolutionary end. We human beings evolved in the last, less than a million years. But then for the fish, they actually came out 120 million years ago. Still, this is not a good point of consideration or for justification. So I was told, no, actually I told my colleagues that when you put any videos on our website, be careful not to put any cruel photos. Oh, look at this! It's so cute. Say no. If you think about that, 10 hours later or 10 months later, you are going to sacrifice these animals. That would be a totally different story, right? And then there's another nice term called sacrifice. 犧牲. Sacrifice means that, oh, the animal's life are going to be terminated, okay? There must be some contributions, right? You call it sacrifice, 犧牲, 一定有啲貢獻. And then you say, okay, because I want this data, I want to see the data. You know, it's a lifelong test if you want to test cancer. And then we feed the animals with the suspect carcinogen, with the right dose or the daily allowable intakes, and then after like 2 months, 3 months, and then we dissect the animals and check whether there are tumors or cancer inside. It's a lifelong test. Oh, that is very important because we want to know this chemical, whether it's a carcinogen or not. Still, with that, you have to justify to the ethical committee. Why would you like to have more than 3 animals per group? And then you say, oh, because I want the data would be more significant, so perhaps I should use more than 10 animals, but right now I'm using 5, so I have already reduced the number of animals. I've heard my colleagues always have this kind of discussion with the ethical committee of the university. There are strict guidelines nowadays to control how many, and justification, again, is the key word, justification. How are you going to justify to use these animals? And then the justification of the number of animals to be used, and then the justification of the duration of the experiments. Right? These are the things that of our concerns. And finally, for cloning, I won't touch up on this much long because in my last lecture, lecture 6, and also Michael's teaching, we'll discuss about animal cloning and reproductive cloning. Cloning means asexual reproduction. A clone is a clone from the cell that is overgrown. That would be easy for E. coli or for plant cells. But for animal lives could be a different story. Because after you all, say like the embryo, you have taken the embryonic stem cells. Each cell, if it's before 4-cell or 8-cell stage, could become an individual. So you are creating new individuals. So do you think it's, you're making artificial genes? So these are the issues that we think, are important. So how many of you would agree with abortion? Raise your hand. I thought usually girls would. It's also a feminism issue. We have more girls than boys in this room, but then men don't care. The boys here, I never thought about this question. In my GE class, I usually would spend at least 10 minutes to explain what is fertilization, right? So when a sperm goes into an egg, that's fertilization. After a few hours, the polynuclei from the egg and the sperm would join together, right? And then, when does life begin? Life. Shortly after fertilization, 1 hour. Or, oh no. That fertilized egg, you do not find any human features. Right? We only see an egg, right? You eat egg every day. But that's not the same kind of egg. Oh, that should be 1 week. Because after that, the fertilized egg is now preparing to grow into an embryo. So the fertilized egg and the embryo actually, after 4 cell, 8 cell, 16 cell stages, they will move on to become an embryo. And for that, the embryo must be embedded onto the inner layer of the uterus, right? Oh, that is the definition of when the life begins right at the time. So number 1, shortly after fertilization. Number 2, when the fertilized eggs start to develop into an embryo. And number 3, 1 month, started to see the primitive structure of the tissues, the brain. Now this question could be very biological, right? And then 3 months actually you could see all the limbs. But not the baby yet. All the primitive structures already in place. Okay, so I ask you the question again. So you do agree abortion is acceptable at 3 months, 2, 1, or 1 week, or totally not? How about other students in this room? You know, doesn't really matter. What do you think? Abortion. Local law right now is that 3 months with a signature from 2 doctors. And after counseling in a hospital, do you think it's good? It's acceptable? Okay. So I've given enough elaboration. So raise your hand if you think the local law for abortion is acceptable. Now more and more people have said. Even now, we have some other conditions, right? Even the baby from the pregnant mother who was not raped, under this condition, natural birth still acceptable? Okay. Ah, strange. When I asked my GE class, they all have different opinions. Maybe life scientists are more acceptable or understandable in this sense. Okay, let's take a break and then we come back for orthodoxy. We'll take a break of 10 to 15 minutes. I'll finish the rest of the lecture, and you're most welcome to come out and ask me any questions if you have.